and we'll have our address by Charlie Wood.
Memorial Day always conjures up for me a phrase that Jesus spoke to his disciples their last night together before he would go to the cross willingly to die in place of them. And what he said was, "Greater love has no one than this, that he laid down his life for his friends." If that is the greatest example of love, then I see the men and women who answered the call to serve our nation's military force as some of the most loving human beings this world has produced. I realize this might sound a little strange, so let me explain myself. These days, love can be kind of a muddled word that means a lot of different things for us. We use it as a word to describe favor. I really love that movie, for instance. Or more often we think of love, we think maybe of some almost feminine mushiness, kind of a feeling that you get that we can't describe very well. And we know it has something to do with candlelit dinners and maybe something you do for your spouse that you are glad you only have to do maybe once or twice a year on Valentine's Day or something. But neither of these holds a candle really to what the Bible describes love as. The way God describes love, and he should know because it originates from him, is not a feeling at all. It's an action. Love is an action. It's a commitment. It's a total act of the will. And it comes out in real activities by the person who loves. That's exactly why the very familiar passage in the Bible about love, that you find, love is patient, love is kind, and so on. Those are all actions. Well, in the 5th century, a monk named Telemachus wanted to live his life in pursuit of God. And so he went out in the desert and he lived all alone, praying and studying and meditating and all that. And one day as he prayed, he realized his life was based on a selfish love of God, not a selfish one. He suddenly realized that if he were to really serve God, he must serve men because God loves them. And so he decided to return to the city where there was a great deal of need because of the sin and our problems with it. And I'll say more about him in a minute, but that's an important distinction that he made. A lot of people might talk about love, but our men and women of the armed forces are actually showing their love every day by what they're doing. They are loving in the real biblical sense of the word, because love isn't content when the objects of our love are oppressed. Love fights when others are wrong. Love works to right wrongs in this world. This is exactly what the men and women in America's armed forces who put their lives on the line have done and are doing. In a world where much of the military power has historically been used for conquest, for fighting for land, our military men and women have fought to liberate others and to defend that liberty in a whole variety of times and places through our history. That's a remarkable love. A love that again transcends the bounds of what most of the world considers love, because it's not bound to those that we know and have a natural affection for. Though there's countless examples of illustrations of the kind of love and brotherhood that exists in those who wear a United States military uniform, not the least of which is the lengths that many brave men and women have gone to make sure that no man is left behind, no man's left in the enemy's hands, dead or alive. But I especially want to highlight the fact that our fighting men and women have offered their lives often for those who they never lay eyes on. They fought for the rights and the freedoms of people that may not even be born yet. People they may not even like. People who will always remain forever total strangers to them. This, again, is like the kind of love Jesus calls us when he says we're to love even our enemies. He said even pagans love those who love them, he said. But our servicemen and women have not had to speculate on what that might look like or what they would do in such situations because they've actually been there. I have to say that they have shown the world what real love looks like and the greatness of the God that we serve. During the war in Iraq, Stephen Scheider, an Army medic, met his enemy's bullet before he met his enemy. While patrolling the dangerous streets of Baghdad, he was shot in the chest by an enemy sniper. Although he was knocked to the ground by the impact, he was saved by his bulletproof vest. In company with the combat team that tracked down the sniper, the soldier discovered his assailant had been wounded. And at this point, loving someone's enemy was not a theoretical concept. The enemy was directly in front of him, wounded and in need of prompt medical attention. He died. Only moments earlier, that same sniper had put Scheiser's heart between the crosshairs on the scope of his rifle and pulled the trigger, trying to kill him. He could have easily roughed him up. He could have simply walked away and been justified in doing so, but instead he treated and he dressed the wounds of the man who tried to take his life. Or there's the account I heard recently about the U.S. triage facility doing its best to save the lives of 2 Iraqi enemy insurgents who moments earlier were trying to kill them all. And this U.S. medical team moved heaven and earth to try and save their lives. And one insurgent was not going to survive unless he got 30 pints of blood. And so the call went out for volunteer donors. Minutes later, dozens of our soldiers had lined up. And so at the head of the line was this one battle-hardened soldier named Brian. And he was asked if it mattered that his blood was going to be going to this insurgent. And he just smiled and said, no, human life is a human life. That kind of attitude reveals that there's principle behind the fight. It isn't to go out and destroy, but it's to take head-on the oppressors of our time, to defend the defenseless, to right those wrongs, and to not let the evil of this world have its way with the people of this nation. And their love for the people of this nation and the principle that they shouldn't have that freedom taken away or trampled on is so strong that they're willing and have given their lives to this cause. Greater love has no one than this, that he lays down his life for his friends. While others can say that we love our freedom, the men and women we remember today have shown that they love it by giving their lives to preserve it. That's the greatest act of love imaginable, to sacrifice one's own life for another. And the willingness of these men and women to do so deserve our utmost respect and thanks.